Hi everyone. I am really excited to have my friend Ruth next to me today on the couch, who has agreed to come along and share her story with the OWise community today. So I will start, as I always do, say hi, thank you for coming.
Hi, so nice to be here.
And yeah, if we just start really with where breast cancer kind of came into your life and how that looked for you to start with.
Okay, so hi.
Just a big question.
Just a little one. So my name's Ruth, and I was 43 when I got diagnosed. 44 now. I was diagnosed in March of last year, 2023. I had 7 months of chemotherapy. And halfway through that, I found out that I was also a carrier of the BRCA1 gene, which was, I would say, almost as big a shock as getting the breast cancer, because I was aware of it. I knew what this thing was, and I never considered in a million years that I would be walking around carrying that gene. I had an aunt who had breast cancer age 60. She lived down in Cornwall. I was 20 at the time. And I never would have thought that breast cancer was in my family. But boy, is it in the family, you know.
Does that aunt have BRCA? Does it carry the BRCA gene mutation as well?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. So she's actually now 80. She's 20 years on from her diagnosis, which is, my shining light. That's my incredible story that I hang on to.
It's incredible.
And the whole family's being tested now. So she's actually being tested as well, even though she's 80. But I told her it was for the family tree, and she said, "Yeah, let's get tested."
So, what was it? The testing for you, was it just part of your kind of pathway once you were diagnosed? Because of the age you were diagnosed, is that why?
Yeah, I mean. So I have the triple negative breast cancer, which I understand has a bigger proportion of people carry the BRCA1 gene who are triple negative. So it was part of the routine testing. I had full NHS treatment, and I have to say my treatment was amazing.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any complaints over the treatment. I had tens of thousands of pounds worth of treatment, all for free. And after the 7 months of chemotherapy, I actually had a double mastectomy. And when they opened me up, they found out that I had a complete pathological response. So, the chemo was hard, but the chemo was worth it because it cured me, fingers crossed, of my cancer.
You're quite fresh out of chemo and surgery. You've only just hit your 1 year since diagnosis, or have
not
you?
Yet.
Not yet. So your cancerversary is coming up.
Yeah,
the first one. I mean, that's a busy year for you. It's been a big year. Are you still feeling the effects of chemotherapy? Are you on any treatment now?
Yeah. I was one of the lucky ones in that immunotherapy had quite recently been, thrown in the mix for triple negative breast cancer patients. So I'm still on the immunotherapy. The immunotherapy is a year's worth of treatment. So I do that up until May. I feel little to no side effects from that, which is great.
That's excellent. The pembrolizumab.
Yeah.
So I took that as well.
Oh, you did. Yeah. So, sorry, I forgot your question there.
No, the question was if you still feel it. So that's amazing if you're still on treatment and if you're having side effects from that. But that's amazing that you're not. Are you still feeling the effects of chemo then still in your system?
My chemo finished at the end of October last year. I had 4 weeks break, and then I had the double mastectomy. So it's difficult to know what the after effects was. For the rest of that year, was I feeling chemo after effects or the effects of a really massive surgery,
which comes quite soon after finishing chemo, which is floors you anyway, right?
Yeah. So I would say I started 2024 thinking with a focus that I wanted to get back to work. I wanted to build my fitness up. I mean, I had a little bit of a mantra that I tried to keep active during chemo.
Fantastic.
So it really sort of saw me through. I would try and just, get up, get my daughter to school, walk the dog, do some steps, make an evening meal. It was just my thing to keep me going and not make me feel like I was a really, really sick person.
Yeah.
So my thing for the start of this year was to build my fitness up. And I'd also read, I think there's been some research that came out, during my treatment to say that exercise is, really helps, with reoccurrence and yeah, I don't want to go through this again.
Yeah.
So I'm building up steps. I'm up to about 10,000 steps a day now, which I could never have done actually at the start of January. So, I mean, we're sitting here.
So January would be so soon after your surgery.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Then
yeah.
Where are we now? We're start of March.
Yeah, start of March. So I'm doing some strength training and, just trying to get that fitness back because it just makes me feel more like me as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to cling on to who you are as a person. I was always a fairly fit and healthy and active person. So you got to cling on to the little bits of you if you can, and not kind of fall into, because look, it's really difficult. Chemotherapy is one of the strongest drugs that you will, that is around, that you'll ever take in your life. And it can floor you and it messes with your head. Some days I would feel a depression. I'm not a depressive type. And my husband would say to me, Ruth, it's the drugs. The drugs are doing this to you. And he was right. A couple of days later, I would come out of it and I'd feel more like myself.
That can be the steroids as well, right? That they give you so much that you're and I mean, again, we met when you'd had your diagnosis. Yeah. We started to interact and chat and get to know each other. But I don't know beforehand if you felt strong and if you felt good. But I know when I was diagnosed, I was feeling really good. And then suddenly it's like, I've got to take all this medicine that's going to make me feel so rough and rubbish. So that messes with your head as well, because it's not the cancer that's making us sick. Because I didn't feel sick when I was first diagnosed.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I did feel before the diagnosis was extreme fatigue.
I had that.
Okay. Yes. I felt like, in hindsight, my body was fighting this thing. I'd been on a work trip abroad and I was coming back to the hotel just literally wanting to cry. I felt so tired. And that was around about the time that I found the lump. But having said that, when I went to the doctor with that lump, never in a million years did I think that I would get cancer at age 43. It sounds crazy, because I've thought about this time and time again. Why did I go around my life thinking that cancer would never affect me? But I didn't. I thought I was going to die a little old lady, age 90, in my bed. I knew.
Well, still, hopefully that will be exactly what happens, right? Like this is,
But I never ever.
The time, things that might happen in that time until that point.
Yeah, and I didn't think I would get cancer.
No.
So I guess I'm here today to say it can happen to anyone, and I do have a thing in me now where I want to spread awareness. I've gone back to work in the last 2 weeks actually, and I've been emailing some of my contacts saying, well, they know why I was off, but I'm saying to them, do you know what? I got the all clear. But halfway through this journey, I found out that I was carrying this BRCA1 gene. And I want to have that conversation with people. And a few people have come back to me saying, do you know what? I want to get tested for that as well. And I think that's amazing. I didn't join those dots, but if I can help someone else join those dots, then I'm here for it.
It's incredible, especially, you did say that you were aware of the BRCA mutation before getting it. So even in that respect, like there are a lot of people that maybe are out there that don't know about BRCA1, BRCA2, or there's others now, PALB and CHEK. So even just having those conversations, and then people go, oh, there's a gene. Oh, my grandmother, she had ovarian cancer. Maybe I should think about it. You and I were walking around, and I read a really powerful quote, I think it was by the Eva Peel, that said, every single cancer diagnosis where the person has BRCA is a missed opportunity to prevent that cancer. And you and I, it is a bit like walking around like a ticking time bomb. If you have it and you don't know you have it, and you only find out after your diagnosis, right? So those conversations are so important. And it's amazing that you are kind of having them with people. And
because I just feel like the preventative, operations that you can have, they can, if you've never had cancer, they can reduce your percentage to less of the general population of the chance of getting cancer. I'm slightly different because I have had cancer. I do still have an elevated risk, but my daughter, for example, and I'm being she's only 10, and I'm being really open with her. And, she's seen me with my top off 1 million times in the last year. And I'm talking to her about that because she could carry this thing as well. But the hope that I feel is that if she does, she can have a preventative double mastectomy. She can maybe have her children and then have her ovaries out. And there's also some incredible, IVF and egg freezing.
They remove and that's it. The gene mutation is gone. If our children do happen to have it, then there is that option. Have you spoken to your daughter about BRCA? Does she know that you got cancer because of carrying a gene mutation?
Yeah, so I've got a 15-year-old boy and I've got a 10-year-old girl. So I sat them down individually, and I told my son, and he went, "Oh, brilliant! I've got a cancer gene, brilliant," something like that. But I need to keep stressing to them that we don't know if they've got it. They've got a 50% chance of having it. But yes, I've been open with my daughter as well. And I am trying to present it in a positive light. And it is a positive light. I'm the one who had the cancer, who revealed the BRCA1 gene to the rest of the family. And I feel like that's a good thing. I can prevent, there's women in my family and men, of course, as well. But I can maybe prevent the girls from going through what I've gone through, because, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Obviously, I co-host the BRCA support group, which you've come to with Charlie Morgan. And a lot of the time we get a mix of people who have had a cancer diagnosis who are coming for support for all number of reasons. Maybe they've got their surgery for the ovaries removed coming up, or they just want to meet other people who carry BRCA and talk about their kids and these kind of conversations. And then we get a lot of people coming from the preventative side of things who know they've got BRCA and are thinking about all their options. And I think I try and always say, like, it's such big information, it's huge. However, I know if I could have known I had the BRCA gene mutation and taken steps and not got cancer, not had to deal with all that brought and the fear of it coming back and all of the, that is just massive, right? It's massive. And that is why, getting more people screened and more people to find out they carry it and have these informed and educated conversations around what they can do to prevent getting cancer is a game changer.
And I tell you, something that comes up a lot is that, look, there are members of my family who don't want to be tested. And something that comes up is fear. They want to live in the dark. And I find that difficult because I'm sitting here, with a cancer diagnosis, and I can't understand that. I'm very much a person where I want the information, but so that's the little bit that I struggle with, the kind of, I'll put that off, or I'll not find that out, because I just wish I'd had that information, or somebody coming to me, as I say, trying to join up those dots for me. Because cancer ain't no joke, is it?
No, I mean, my older sister, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer 5 months before my diagnosis, and it was a late stage, and she is my sister on my dad's side. So that's how, when I was diagnosed, we realized, okay, we've got this gene mutation from my dad's side of the family. But I had gone to try and get tested 3 years before my diagnosis. And they had, on the NHS, said, that I didn't meet the criteria, because although my mum and her mum had breast cancer, they'd had it in their 50s.
Right.
So they sent me away. And I totally appreciate that and understand that actually I didn't have young cancer, so to speak, but it was in my dad's side. And so it is, I've got family as well that aren't interested in getting tested, and I respect that for them. Less fear from their side of things, more just they live very, I guess, I don't know, holistically, and maybe they think that having the information wouldn't necessarily change much in terms of how they're living anyway. But I do sometimes sit with that. If I found out I carried it 3 years before,
that's hard.
It would have, less for me because my breast cancer was caught early, but for my sister, I think her ovarian cancer wouldn't have been so advanced. And so it is, knowing that, I know how important it is that people can get screened, and I would be allowed screening now because I have a Jewish grandparent, and that was recently made on the NHS, that now if you have one Jewish grandparent, you can be tested for BRCA. So that's huge. So that means that 3 years ago, not 3 years ago, my diagnosis was 4 years ago, 7 years ago, I would have been tested. And so they're making advances all the time with BRCA and other gene mutations, and I think we are here, we can offer that hope, right? And like you said, you see it as a good thing, not that you got your diagnosis, but that you can now give that information to your children, that when the time comes, they hopefully don't have to face it. Right? Yeah. It is big stuff. The BRCA stuff is big.
It's massive, to be honest. And, as I say, I find it, I don't know why. I've grappled with this thought, and I don't know why I found it as shocking, if not more shocking, than the breast cancer diagnosis. I can't quite pin why I find that so difficult.
I think I had the same as you. And I had maybe think we have spoken about it, that I cried the biggest kind of like wailing.
I howled.
That's exactly the word.
Yeah, I did.
When I found out. Sometimes it's the thing that sets me off. And I think it's because I thought of my kids in a different way. So when you're diagnosed, you think of it, but there's a lot of people saying to you, there's hope, it's treatable, curative, all these words are thrown about, but it's a lot of information that you're taking on. But with BRCA, when you find out, I just in my head saw my kids and went, oh my God, they might have it because of me. And I think that for me was the biggest thing.
Yeah, sure.
As to why it impacted so much. It was like, this isn't just me that has to face this. This is going to be
it's not going away.
It's not going away.
That's the one thing about it. We can't cure that.
Yeah, we can finish our treatment. Exactly that. And that's why the BRCA support group, I think, is so important, because it is something that we kind of walk around with.
Yeah, and look, I love that support group.
It's like
love it.
It's my name's Carly. I've got BRCA1.
It is a little bit like that, but it's just I mean, I understood the stats. It's 1 in 500 people have got BRCA1. Is that around about right? A little bit more.
Don't test me on my stats. I can hold space and support people, but you asked me statistics.
So it's rare, and I think this really special thing about that group is that we're sitting in a room of how many? There was about 25 women there last time, and we all share this really rare thing. And we'll maybe touch on that later, but that's really important when you are going along your life, and and then you get hit with this sort of diagnosis. The first thing that I wanted to do was connect with people who were in the same situation. I feel the human race is all about connectivity and love, and that is what that group brings. And that is what I struggled to find it at the beginning, but that is what I sought. That is what I needed in that moment.
When you were diagnosed, did you seek out people? Did you know anybody who had a diagnosis? Did you kind of, you did feel in that time, did you feel quite alone then?
Yeah. So when I got the diagnosis, I think it's fair to say most women do this, but I had a period of panic. I'd say it lasted about a month.
It's horrible.
It was horrible. I mean, I did some crazy things in that time. Like tell my husband, you've got to go out to the bookshop and buy every book on breast cancer. I know nothing about breast cancer. And I said to him at one point, you can't watch football this afternoon because you need to be reading the breast cancer books. And then at one point I walked past the loo downstairs and I could hear this little football game going on in the loo.
Turn that off. Get back to the book.
But yeah,
it's survival mode.
It's survival. I didn't know anything about breast cancer, all the different types. And at that stage, to bring it back home, you don't know if that cancer has spread or not. So you have nights where you're thinking, I could have months to live.
Yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty, isn't there? And that is a very difficult place to sit.
So I knew nobody, okay, and especially didn't know anyone. I was 43. I didn't know anyone my age. So the first thing I did was tell people, and I stand by, being open about this diagnosis because it connected me to people. And very, very quickly, somebody that I used to work with got in touch saying, my friend's going through breast cancer right now, and I'm going to connect you up. And her name's Emma, and she was like a little guardian angel for me. Look, I'm getting emotional.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps.
But she said to me, she said, message me anytime, and you don't need to have any politeness, or just, if you have a question, message me. And to this day, I haven't actually met her yet.
You just messaged her.
We've just been there for each other and going through some of, the worst that I'll ever go through and she'll ever go through in her life. But she was there for me, and the times where I was covered in an all over body rash, and I was, my temperature was through the roof. Do I go to hospital? Get to hospital now, you idiot.
It's funny you say that. Yeah, when you do connect with people, and I had a message from someone that I was also having that. I don't think we've met in person, or we bumped into each other very briefly. But it was that thing too of, what do I do? I've got a temperature, and you are a bit lost, and you look to people who have been there before, and we're not medical, like we don't know, but I knew, like when this happened to me, I called my team, and and you almost can just like help people with those little steps that can feel so scary.
And it's the hand holding as well. And look, I'm a fairly British person in the respect where I don't want to bother the nurses and the doctors, if they've got more important things to do. So there were times when I absolutely needed to go to A&E and I didn't do it because I didn't want to bother somebody. But that's, I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
For anyone watching. Yeah. Please call your team if your temperature gets above 37.5, isn't it?
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, definitely. I think that is such, you're saying it's crazy. It's not.
It is.
In that time, it's how a lot of people are. Yeah. But I think it is so, having had 2 hospital stays during chemo, our immune systems are flawed, right? Like we were saying. Any spike of a temperature, you need to get one of those IV antibiotics super speedily. So definitely like that number they give you is like, call that, speak to your team.
Yeah. But that was when, my network came in and said, of course, you've got to, seek out the help and, get those extra drugs or side effect drugs or whatever you need.
But it can feel so hard to go from someone who is so independent and so strong and, to suddenly being a real medical patient who I never went to the doctor. I never took a paracetamol. Same. So it is really difficult to be like, well, this, normally I would just be still going to work with a temperature of 37.5 and suddenly you feel very vulnerable and very so it is such a shift for people who face a cancer diagnosis and treatment to get into that space.
Yeah,
that kind of vulnerable,
definitely
fragile.
Yeah, definitely.
When you were first diagnosed, you felt lonely, not lonely, but alone and 100%. Very overwhelmed and scared, and all those things that come with a diagnosis. Was there a shift then when you were connected with your friend Emma? And then did you start to find others?
So I'm a researcher at heart, and my way of the diagnosis was to read every book and try and connect with people and, just immerse myself in this weird little world that I was now in. So Instagram was a really great resource for me because, I love it for the fact that I can meet real life people who are going through exactly what I am going through. And it was really important, you know, to actually see what was involved in these treatments, because it's a big scary thing if you've never done it before. And actually there's a really big community over on TikTok as well. I call it Cancer Talk, but you know, it's real people who are going through this, and they're showing the most vulnerable sides of the treatments, and that was really important to me. You know, I consider myself a fairly young person having the treatment, and I felt like there was a void. I mean, I went to my hospital and said, "How can I connect with people?" And the nurse said, "Oh, actually, there is another girl who's going through this treatment." I never met that girl, but just by the fact that she said there's one other person in the whole of the chemo unit, I thought, oh, blooming heck, here we are, you know. So it was
So I imagine you were one of the youngest on that ward as well.
I definitely was. Like, you know, that chemo ward is a desperately sad place, and I never met somebody my age, if I'm honest. I read a book, Rosamond Dean's book actually, and she said find your tribe. I remember that phrase, and I thought, how do I find my tribe? You know, but looking back, it was piece by piece. It was slowly, it was surely, and it was just, you know, a combination of charities actually as well, and you know, organizations for breast cancer and young women's breast cancer. I feel like the NHS gave me thousands of pounds worth of treatment, but they didn't do anything for my mental health, and you know, the psychology of coping with the cancer diagnosis,
which is huge.
It's more than 50%, isn't it? Because really, you've got to physically go through the treatment, but you've got to keep your brain okay as well. And it's very, very easy, especially in those early days, to plummet and go into a really dark place. And yeah, through this sort of, you know, the reading and the people that I met, I made a conscious decision quite early on to positively choose to be in a healthy, you know, headspace. So I did things like gratitude every single day. I did affirmations. I would, you know, do crazy things where I would, you know, imagine the lump, you know, floating off into a cloud.
Yes.
It really helped me.
Yeah.
I did a whole bunch of research into carrying trauma inside your body and negativity, and releasing that trauma so that you can enable healing. It sounds bonkers saying it out loud, but these are the things that got me through.
But also is that everyone will individually find their things that will help them, and there will be somebody watching today that will be like, oh, that's okay, I'm going to try that. And I am with you that they have massively helped me get through some of my hardest days.
And it also made me look inward. And I've got a fairly busy job. I've always worked, you know, even despite, you know, having 2 kids. But I thought, you know, I really need to slow things down. I need to connect with who I am, what I love. I would do, you know, I'd walk into the garden every day during that treatment, and I'd you know, barefoot, feeling the grass between my feet, and I would, you know, I love gardening.
Hug a tree. I was hugging trees like they were my best friends. Still do love to hug a tree. I swear
by it. Yeah. But it's those things that, you know, I'll kind of be grateful for the cancer diagnosis, for, you know, reframing. You know, my best friend was the biggest support during my cancer diagnosis, and she would send me a message every single day. She'd either message or call, probably both, and we had this thing where she would tell me to reframe a situation. And I can't tell you how helpful it was. And I'd be like, okay, Rachel, I'm going into the chemo ward. I feel really scared about, you know, having this treatment. Reframe it. Ruth, this is life-saving treatment.
Yes.
You know, you're lucky. You're lucky you caught the cancer early. You get free treatment. You know, like, you know, you can, you know, your husband's bringing you a cup of tea and breakfast in bed every morning. You've got 2 beautiful kids out there, you know. Reframing. So and it really, really helped. And yeah, she's my little angel.
I read but you cannot be in a state of gratitude and a state of fear at the same time.
Right. I love
So
that.
with the reframing and what your friend said to you, that is
Yeah.
such a powerful way. And it can feel so impossibly hard to do that in some situations,
Yeah.
right? But if you are able to, and if you have a friend there helping you to do it, that conversation would have meant you walked in feeling a bit more empowered and a bit more like, and grateful that you're able to have the treatment as opposed to fearful of the treatment that you're about to have. And it's a big mind shift.
It really is. The brain is a clever thing because it has this part of it that is trying to protect you. It's saying, why are you going into this hospital? This is scary drugs, don't do it.
That's going to make you feel rubbish. And once you've had one and you have to get back in that chair, that is some serious digging deep, like mentally, physically, like spiritually, that people have to do, because it goes against everything, right?
It really does.
Why would I want to go and feel really rubbish again?
Yeah. But then I'd teach the other side of my brain to say, no, this is life-saving treatment. Yeah. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Your cancer is going to hopefully disappear with this. So, the mental battle with a cancer diagnosis is big. And I don't think it's talked enough.
And it doesn't just stop either, does it? Like, you finish chemo, you finish your surgery. It's ongoing. And I think that connecting at that point too, sometimes for people, is when it really powerfully comes into its own, because I don't believe, and maybe for some people they can, but I don't think it's a simple case of, right, shut that door and move on and cancer's done, like, oh, let's go. It's like there's stuff, and that mental health support after is so important.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit like coming out of a battle, isn't it? You've been at battle for, and there's so much uncertainty. So yes, I'm at the stage where I'm trying to rebuild, and it's working. I'm focusing on the things that are important to me, and it feels good. I feel in a good place.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Ruth. I mean, honestly, everyone that shares their stories, I'm so appreciative of, but you are in active treatment still, and that is just, for anyone watching, I think, amazing to see that you've come through your chemo, your surgery, and
this cute little hairdo.
You're looking gorgeous. Your hair is beautiful. It's coming back all lovely and thick. Yeah. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. It's been amazing.
You're so welcome.
Oh.